You going through perimenopause or menopause, you have one job. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if this is going to be hard for you to hear, but I am through menopause. I'm 56 years old. It's been at least 2 years, and I have become more and more certain of one thing. Menopause is your calling. I'll explain. I'm Anne-Marie McQueen, journalist and proud 50-ish woman, and we are here looking for the true truth in perimenopause, menopause, midlife, and beyond.
Opening our minds to other possibilities is not always easy.
Hop, I think.
You're all woman to me. All right, Anne-Marie.
So you're going through perimenopause and menopause. You have one job. What is that job? It is to decide who you are going to be. Yes, that's right. Because once those hormones are stripped away from you, you get to be who you always wanted to be. You get to be who you are, but you have had decades, 40 years to forget. And the reason that I think this is so compelling right now is that there are 1,000 people telling you what's wrong with you. No one's really talking about what's right with you. And if you don't hold this as your North Star, you can get bamboozled and sidetracked by all the people who are willing to tell you what is wrong with you. Who's to blame for the way you're feeling, whether it's not sleeping, libido, hot flashes, a general feeling that things just aren't okay. All the things that come with perimenopause. They'll tell you it's your hormones, it's trauma, it's the patriarchy, it's your metabolism, it's your marriage, it's a man you're with, it's the woman you're with, it's your doctor, it's the medical system, it's the estrogen deficiency, it's the global elite, it's your gut, it's cortisol. Look, some of these things might be true, and I could go on and on about them. But I know during my own no good, very bad, terrible perimenopause that I spent my 40s grabbing at anything that seemed like it would make me feel okay. And this included supplements, the latest functional medicine specialist I heard of, a hot nutritionist I could meet with. When social media took hold, I believed things that everyone said. I was into green juice. I was into powders. I was into healthy food, but it was actually processed. All of these things, I believe, made my perimenopause worse. The supplements certainly did. And the problem was that I was going from a life where I thought everyone else had the answers, and I was being called to a place where no one gets to be the authority on me but me. But I had a very messy middle. And that's why I want you to get clear on this now. Perimenopause can be absolutely brutal. I know, mine was. But what if this isn't just something you have to survive and do these specific things to do it? What if this is the decade or the set of years where you get to question absolutely everything? Who you are, who you chose to surround yourself with, what you decided to do for a living, what food you like to eat, what drinks you like to have, what you like to do with your spare time, who you believe is telling the truth, and who might not be. And along the way, you can break down all the fear and the shame and the expectations and the things you think about your body and your heart and your soul. And when you're figuring out all those things, you get to decide what you're keeping. I want you to get help. I want you to take whatever medication. I want you to take hormone therapy, take the supplements, do the eating plan, do the workout plan, but I want you to know why you're doing it. I don't want you to trust the person who's selling it to you about why you're doing it. I want you to understand it. You know, when I became an editor, I would have reporters writing stories for me, and I would say, it's clear in this story that you don't really understand what's going on here. You need to understand it before you can tell someone else about it. And I think it's important for us to fully understand what's going on so that we can later know why we did what we did. And that's what I remember about my 40s, as I didn't really, because I was putting all my trust outwardly. Now, I've created the hot truth about hormone therapy. It is a guide to empower you to make a decision. The main crux is that I tell you that there's 12 different ways to prescribe, and some of them are diametrically opposed to each other. And everyone who espouses those approaches thinks they're right. So I just want you to see all of it so then you can say, okay, this makes the most sense for me. And I understand why. It wasn't just that my doctor handed me a hormone therapy prescription, which, by the way, if you ask some pointed questions, they wouldn't be able to answer very much. They wouldn't. I want you to know for yourself, to know your why. The reason why is that the person who is selling you the solution, and whatever that solution is, whether it's a peptide or it's hormone therapy or it's a weight loss program, they're selling you the solution. I'm telling you it's a solution. It's one solution among many. Perimenopause takes a long time, and I think it takes a long time for a reason. And I think, who am I going to be at the end of this is the question underlying everything. And I wish someone had asked me that or told me that in my 40s so that I could have felt less rudderless. It is a time when the ground is very shaky beneath our feet. And if you can keep this as your North Star, like, who am I going to be at the end of this? And if you can keep the answer as something like, I want to be the most me that I can be, then you are on the right path. I spent years trying to fix myself, thought that I was dying. And I did what so many of us do when we don't feel right, is I started looking everywhere else for answers. And it's embarrassing because I was a journalist and I just don't think I was very discerning. I went down all the alternate health rabbit holes. I've believed all the trends. I started worrying about toxins. And the thing is, every new person I came across had an explanation. And I now know, looking back, that has continued to be the case. The explanations have just continued to evolve. Everyone thinks they know what's wrong with you, and it depends what they're selling. So if it's a person who can provide you with hormones, then it's your hormones. Unless they're a more nuanced thinker, and I really like those people, and I showcase them here. The gut person thinks it's your gut. The trauma person thinks that it's trauma. The sort of wellness influencer tells you it's cortisol. The metabolic health person thinks you're insulin resistant. The person who doesn't like belly fat tells you belly fat's bad. The thing is, a lot of these people have built a business around their solution. So it's their business to tell you that it's the solution. And what you get to decide is that maybe it's a solution, but not the solution for you, or not the full solution that you're going to pursue. And I think people start out with good intentions. So many people have helped thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, but that doesn't mean that they're going to help you. And if it doesn't feel right, or it seems too extreme, or it's just a little bit depressing, then you don't have to believe them. It took me absolutely years to understand this. And when I see younger women coming up now who don't want to believe they're in perimenopause, doing every test under the sun, worrying about the most granular of things, I just want to hug them and say, honey bunny, you're going somewhere. Can you just decide who you want to be at the end of it? Hang on to that. Do you want to be someone who's hormone testing yourself within an inch of your life and refusing to accept that there's this thing called perimenopause that leads to menopause, and you're smack dab in the middle of the age group, and that this is how it feels? Hormone therapy is a great example because when I first started doing hot flashing, I wasn't feeling very good. That's the reason I launched this platform. And I went down the hormone therapy route. And I thought maybe this is what I've been missing. What happened was that the more I investigated my own health, the more I realized that there were much deeper things at play. And I had a health crisis in my early 50s. And it stemmed back to my 30s, to the trauma I had as a child, to the traumatic career that I chose as a journalist. I had IBS almost every day since I was like 30, and my body was running on backup systems. It didn't really know how to produce energy properly. And then eventually, after decades of that, you have to pay the piper. So where I was asking about hormone therapy, I needed a full metabolic overhaul. I needed a doctor who understood how energy is produced and how that I could change the way I ate, the way I thought, the way I cared for myself, the way I moved, so that I could support it. I am so lucky that I found my doctor, who is a GP and homeopath. I didn't end up on hormone therapy. I didn't end up needing it. Now, there's many people who will tell you that that is a very bad decision, that you absolutely do need hormone therapy, that you need higher levels of hormone therapy to avoid disease. I don't believe that. My doctor doesn't believe that. This is my story, not your story. This is the decision I made. Why I think it's important is that if I had gone on hormone therapy, I may not have found out about these other things that needed addressing. I also went through tremendous emotional overhauls while I was seeing this doctor. I wouldn't trade that for anything. You may need to address sleep apnea. You may need to leave your marriage. You may need to eat more food and stop punishing yourself with rigorous exercise that your body can no longer accommodate. I don't know what your thing is. It may seem to have nothing to do with menopause, but it really does. And the more I do this, the more I am very suspicious of the people that tell you that there's this thing that you should do that will make all the difference. And I'm really suspicious of people who tell millions of people that. We're living through a fascinating moment in menopause, and we're also living through a time when we're allowed to blame others for the way that we feel right now. There's good reason for that anger, the patriarchy. Science has not accommodated us, didn't even include us until the 90s. It's kind of like we had our experiences dismissed, and then we were given this script where we could just lay blame about it. Medicine failed you. Doctors weren't taught about this. No one offered you hormones. It's toxins. Your metabolism is broken. I just don't want you to let anyone be the authority on what's happening with you. I think you can spend this transition looking for someone to blame, and as you start to emotionally heal from whatever's happening, that does happen, right? Like people who are dealing with their parents and maybe problematic stuff with their parents will start to want their parents to acknowledge what happened when they were children. And this usually doesn't go very well, especially with boomers. We can blame anything. We can blame wellness culture, the patriarchy. We can blame capitalism, social media. I can blame a group of doctors who've banded together and told you that hormone therapy will prevent dementia or cardiovascular disease, as if it's that easy, as if there's one thing. But I'm not going to, because everyone is really trying to help. And I think the only thing that we can do is say, okay, this isn't some design flaw. We weren't just handed something that caused us to conk out at 50. We're as important as men, and we are meant to be here just as long as they are. And so I get to decide what menopause means for me. And I can decide that it's an estrogen deficiency. I can decide that it's a biological adaptation and initiation and a period of time when I get to figure out who I really am. And I can take hormones regardless of what I think about it. And I can start to question the voices that I've carried around inside my head. There are so many people right now, especially with body image, that are really, really confusing all of us, because you're seeing people who had been prouder to be bigger, and you're seeing people shrink in real time. I am seeing transformations by fitness professionals who are helping midlife women that absolutely scare the bejesus out of me. These people are starting to look like cadavers to me. So as someone who struggled with their body image and a fluctuating weight my whole life, I find this really, really serious. And I'm struggling like everyone else, but I think the important thing is to just stop and say, whose voice is that? The voice telling you you needed to lose weight. The voice telling you that you can't eat the way you thought you could eat. The voice telling you you need to go on hormone therapy. Are they your friends? Are they societies? Do you actually feel it? Do you actually know anything about it? Is it real? Fear, shame. So many of us have lived with fear and shame inside our bodies, and we didn't even know it was there. I just recently heard about a book by a woman named Kristen Carter called You're Not in Trouble. I just realized that I'm not in trouble. I mean, my whole life I've just sort of acted like I'm going to get in trouble in any minute. Do you know what a huge revelation this has been? These are the kinds of things that we get to decide during perimenopause and menopause, if we just let ourselves go through it. And I think that we can acknowledge that we finally have enough evidence. Like, we live in a complete information society, and we are gathering evidence, and I am the worst for this. Like, I gather evidence galore. But we know so much intuitively, and it's definitely time to start trusting it. I don't want you to go through this alone. This is why I created Hot Flash Inc. But I do want you to start to trust yourself above anyone else. Trusting that you will do what is right for you. Choose the people that are going to help you based on how you feel about this transition. And maybe just stop acting like a fixer-upper. I know this because I was a fixer-upper forever. So we have a North Star. Who do I want to be on the other side when I come out of this? And you can ask yourself, how does she feel? What does she do for fun? What does she want to pursue? What does she want to learn? Who does she want to trust? Who does she want to follow? What does she tolerate? What does she not tolerate anymore? What people does she want around her? And if she can't exactly get rid of the people that are around her, how does she want to conduct herself so those people become more tolerable? When you start asking yourself, what do I believe about myself? What do I believe about this world around me? Really, really interesting things happen. And that's what we need in this world. And I think this transition takes so long because this takes so long. Like, you go down some wrong roads. You make some mistakes. You spend some time sleeping. You spend some time not sleeping. You really do question everything. And there will be a long, dark night of the soul, if not many, during this heroine's journey. The toughest of times. This will happen and you will lose your way. But these things are all strength training for who you're becoming. I don't believe that we should spend the rest of our lives terrified that if we don't buy something or take something or do something, we're not going to be okay. Follow at least 5 people you don't agree with. Follow someone who challenges you. And remember that the person who has come up with a solution, whether it's hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of people they've helped, they're selling that solution. It's in their best interest to make you believe that it is the only solution. It's up to you to decide if it's a solution for you. In a lot of ways, this is easier. In a lot of ways, this helps you get rid of a lot, because if you start asking, is this for me? Is this for who I want to be? You'll find out you don't actually need that much. And in the end, you don't have to listen to that many people. Tonight, when you're going to sleep, when you're feeling tired, when you're not feeling like yourself, just remind yourself, you may have a lot of jobs, you may have a lot of things going on, but you actually only have one job today. And that is to decide that you're going to keep your eyes firmly fixed on that one question through perimenopause. who do I want to be when this is hot? I can tell you from the other side that it is well worth the trip to find that out. Thanks for joining me. See you next week.
Hot Flash Inc. was created and is hosted by Anne-Marie McQueen, produced and edited by Sonia Mack. The information contained in this podcast is intended for informational purposes only and is not intended for the purpose of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products referenced on the podcast, consult with your healthcare provider, read all labels, and heed all directions and cautions that accompany the products. Information received through the podcast should not be used in place of a consultation or advice from a healthcare provider. If you suspect you have a medical problem, i.e. menopause or anything else, or any healthcare questions, please promptly see your healthcare provider. This podcast, including Anne-Marie McQueen and any producers or editors, disclaim any responsibility from any possible adverse effects from the use of any information contained herein. Opinions of guests on this podcast are their own, and the podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about a guest's qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. This podcast is owned by Hot Flash Inc. Media.